everyone. So today I'm going to talk about things that I haven't spoken about in a very long time. This is going to be where I actually first started my business. I first came on here and I started talking about this back in 2022 when I felt very called to bring this information out in the way I have been given to share. And as a lot of you may notice, if you followed me since 2022, all of my platforms were shut down for over a year and a half. So some of you may have just started to see who I am and started following me. Some of you have followed me for a while, but you have probably noticed that, a lot of my platforms disappeared for a bit, or you hardly saw anything, even though I was present. But the point of the matter is I changed the way I was delivering things because of this happening. And I realized that this is not the way I'm going to go. I need to show up and I need to share the information that I always felt called to share. And I will just have to do it in a different way so that I avoid any year and a half being put in some kind of jail. So for all of you who remember the topics and the information that I talked about prior to a year and a half ago, I'm going to start talking about that today. And so there's a big picture here that I want to talk about, and it's going to take more than just one set of reels. This is something that I'm going to bring back like I did back in 2022. So one of the things that I'm very called to talk to you guys about is understanding what is really going on in the world, and only a certain amount of people get it. And I understand that. And I'm grateful for all of you who are interested in this and who want to understand more about what is going on in the big picture. Because to think about what we have really noticed since 2020, but for those of you who've been around and noticed things and been seeing through the veil for a while, you know that there's been many things going on for a long period of time. So why it's surfacing for 2030 and all of these things that are going on around us right now, like these are a specific plan that's been in place for over 25,000 years. This isn't something that's just a one-off and random. And so there's a lot of things that take place in what's going on right now in terms of things that are beyond the scope of most people's awareness and belief systems, where they just want to deny it and shut the door. So there is a much bigger picture going on, and there's so many different moving parts that I could start with. But what's really calling me today to start with, and I did a small part on it a couple weeks ago, was something called your digital twin. Now, a lot of you are noticing that whenever something is inundated, something is repeated over and over and over and over again. That's how you get something into people's subconscious mind. That's how you go through their conscious mind and you just repeat it over and over and over again until it's just normal. It's accepted. And that's part of the psychological warfare that we have been experiencing for like a very long time. So if you've noticed, there's a huge, everything's AI. It just comes out of nowhere. And here we are being inundated with AI everything. And then they're now trying to tune you into, letting AI do everything for you, right? So they're gearing into the laziness of the human. They're trying to say, you know what, you don't need to think, because if you do think, then you'll see through the fence. So we want to keep you distracted and numbed out where you're dumber than dumb. And we just want to keep you from thinking. So we're going to get AI who's going to do all your work for you. Now, I'm not someone who's going to say that AI is bad, but what I'm talking about here is how AI and why it's been created artificially. There's a big purpose for it. It isn't just to add value to humans and to make their lives better. I mean, that is absolutely not why it was brought to this planet. So you need to understand that you can use anything in a positive or a negative way. But I'm talking about the manipulation of humanity that's taking place behind the scenes without them even knowing, because they're being gaslit everywhere you turn. So I wanted to step back a bit and give a little more context, because I know a lot of you who do find me again and have been following me for a while, you already know that there are obviously off-planet races, extra-dimensional races that have been controlling not only our Black government, but it's been controlling here at least since the 1930s, but they've been here on and off for millions of years, not just like as long as what you think humans have been around. So our history is all lies. And this was all done because it's a history that was rewritten because we had our memories wiped back in the Tower of Babel 25,500 some odd years ago. So we don't remember anything in our ancient past. Some people are starting to remember things, but this is something they made sure that censorship stayed all across the board. So anytime a human were to come into a body, a soul came into a body and had these memories engaged, they could not share them, because they needed to make sure that we all humans believed a certain narrative about our history so that it really dumbed down who we really are. We're a divine angelic race. And we have been told that we are made from an ape. We came out of nowhere by a big bang, out of nothing, and we just happen to be at the far end of the galaxy, and we are made from apes. Like, to me, that is blasphemy. You're basically insulting God. You're insulting the divine because that's who you are. Christ consciousness moves to and through you, so you are divine. But they want to make sure that you believe a completely different narrative. And it's all through the religions and all through the dogma and the propaganda. Hating God, a fearing God, and all these things. And I'm not here for people to come into my DMs and start talking religion, because this has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with you understanding how your consciousness, your DNA, and what is happening here is a target. It's always been. Your minds are a target, because they want your mind, they want your consciousness, and they want your DNA. Because once they have that, they don't care about your physical body. That's why they're putting you into what's called a transhuman. They don't care about the physical body whatsoever. It's the mind and your central nervous system is what they want. So to give you guys a little context, because this is such a big picture, I want to bring this back to why I brought it up about the digital twin and what's going on with everything artificial. Again, I'm not here to bash artificial intelligence. Everybody can think it's good. Everyone can think it's bad. It's not my place to say what you can or cannot believe. What I want you to understand is why it's been created and what its purpose is, okay? And you don't have to be a part of this purpose if you're aware of it, so that you do not fall into it. Because it's going to be so stealthy, it's going to blend so seamlessly that it will be very hard for your subconscious mind to detect the difference between what is real and what is not. If you take a look right now at what you're watching, I get people asking me all the time in my DMs, is she real? Is she real? Because it's hard to tell anymore, isn't it? What is real and what is not when you're watching reels or when you're watching videos. This is done purposely so that your subconscious mind, because it can't tell the difference between what is real and what isn't, it won't know the difference. So this is where you really have to start to pay attention, not to the outside world, but to your inner world. This is your true soul self. This is your higher self. You need to start listening to your intuition and raising your consciousness so that you cannot fall under this frequency fence, which is this artificial electric fence that I'm going to talk to you about. So these extraterrestrials that have been around for billions of years, that have been interfering with our evolution forever, that has taken all of our history and made it up so that we believe something that's not true, that has taken us completely out of our alignment with our actual divine blueprint, which is the Christ consciousness 12-strand DNA, when we're now operating with 2 to 3 strands. So there's a huge picture here, but just for these videos alone, I want you to understand these beings live in what's called a shadow matrix. Okay, this is a piece of our matrix that fell apart at D11, so Stargate 11, which means all of their DNA is operating in reverse. This is where you get antichrist beings or satanic beings. So they live from a different dimensional space that is all operating in the opposite of Christ consciousness. So this is where I want you to understand where they reside. It's not here necessarily on the planet. This is why they needed CERN and HARP and all of these electromagnetic frequencies to open up certain portals to allow their consciousness to come into our matrix. So they live in what's called an artificial system. This phantom matrix is artificial. This is where you've heard stories about vampiring and energy vampiring. They have been siphoning energy off of planets, galaxies, and us forever. This is why all of our consciousness, our reality, is all in limited, lack, scarcity, fear, warring. Our reality has been absolutely augmented so that our perceptions believe what we're being told. And whatever you believe you're being told, you create into your reality. So we, as human beings, unbeknownst to ourselves, are creating realities based on the information that we're given. And everything we're given is coded in lack and fear and worry and war. This is why we live this generation after generation after generation, because you don't know who you are. You don't understand your mind. You think you're just a physical being and that's it. And these antichrist beings know exactly who you are. So they live off of energy, because everything is energy. Everything is energy. And they have to siphon off energy because they're no longer in a system that has that life force energy moving to and through them. So this is what they decided to do when they wanted to be their own creator gods and actually take over what God created, this world, this matrix, however you want to perceive where we live, in a multi-dimensional matrix. You do not just live in one dimension. This is ridiculous to think that this is where you are by yourself. It's a lie. So what you need to understand is these beings cannot sustain themselves without siphoning energy from other planets, galaxies, and people, everything. So this is why our reality, our minds have been under mind control forever, because we keep our consciousness low. When you fight, when you war, when you're divided, when you're always sad, you're struggling, they control money. So if they control money, you need to survive by buying things. You're constantly in survival in this timeline. And this is low frequency. Your consciousness is operating very low. And this is what they feed off of. So it's not a coincidence that when you look at the world, that all throughout what little history you're given, the constant fear, constant warring, constant separation, constant so-called pandemics, people dying, all these things, is it giving you abundance and is it triggering you into something that's beautiful? Is it getting you to look at something that's heaven? No, it's giving you hell, because heaven and hell exist. It's all based on your perception. Let's bring this into this timeline. Let's bring this into what Y2030 agenda. This is one thing that I always wonder, why people don't wonder, why the rush, why the hurry? Why is it this particular time? There's a window they have open. And this is what's called the ascension cycle, or the stellar activation cycle, that a lot of you are aware of. This is where the higher frequencies come into our planet. They also are expressed through the core of our planet. These are frequencies that are coming from dimensions 4, 5, and 6, which is Terra. That is Earth in a higher dimension, just like you have a soul in higher dimensions. But this stuff has been hidden from you, so you have no idea. At least some of you do. But what they're doing is they do not want the ascension process to take place. This time, it's going to. What do I mean by that? Ascension cycles happen every 26,550 years. You wouldn't know that because all of our history has been removed. So you have no idea about cycles. You don't understand what's going on. Most people don't. But this is normal. This is how ascension takes place, because we are all meant to go back home to God. So when you can't ascend, it's because your frequencies are too low. To move into a higher dimension means your frequency must match that dimension. We have been put in a static frequency fence of consciousness since the fall of Atlantis. We have been given information. We have had our minds tampered with. We've had our DNA shut off. That's the junk DNA that they tell us God just gave you junk. That keeps your memories from coming through. That keeps you believing in their lies because you can't tap into your higher awareness to see right through the lies until now. So these higher frequencies that are coming to our Earth, coming through our planet, this is what's called the awakening. This is what they've been trying to prevent from happening. This is why you see what they're doing in our atmosphere. This is why they're trying to get things in you so that they can control your mind, your consciousness, so that when these higher frequencies come through, these are what activate your DNA. When you activate these dormant DNA strands, what happens is you start to become aware of the truth. You start to become your multidimensional self instead of just being stuck in a static fence in the third dimension, which is where we've been, like I said, since the fall of Atlantis. So all of this must stop because the awareness will shift as soon as your DNA plugs in. When your DNA is activated from these higher frequencies, more and more people will start to tap into what is called an inner knowing or direct cognition, where you no longer have to live in a logical third dimension where if you don't see it on TV or you don't see it written in a book, then it can't be real. That has to be let go of. That is one of the biggest things that keep humanity stuck, is believing in only what they see and dismissing anything that they don't. So I want you to understand, if you get anything from these videos, especially if it's new for you, that they live in an artificial timeline. Okay, what I mean by that is they do not have a connection to God anymore like you and I do, which means that they do not have that life force energy. I shared that with you. This is why they vampire off of all of us and our Earth and our galaxy and our universe and so forth. So what you have to understand is this ascension cycle is coming. Okay, if a lot of you don't know what it is, an ascension cycle is when anything in the 12-dimensional matrix can move up into the next dimension. So that next one would be Terra, then there's Gaia, then there's Aramatena. There's different Earths in different dimensional fields. You are in a multi-dimensional matrix. You do not just live in the third dimension. So you have an astral body, so you know that's outside of your third dimension. You have a soul body that's outside of the third dimension. So you have to start to understand you are multi-dimensional. And these beings know this because this is why the CIA and everything else in the dark black government has been studying what? You. They've been studying your astral body, your biofield. What are they doing now with your biofield? They've been studying direct cognition, telepathy. Why? Because they want to understand at a deeper level how you connect with your higher self so they can stop you from doing that. And that's what all of these frequencies are all about, because you can be manipulated effortlessly through changing bandwidths of frequency if you're not aware of it. But when you are aware of it and you rise above these lower bandwidths, you cannot be affected. This is what they do not want you to know. So I said, this black hole system that they're in, the Phantom Matrix, is going to, what's going to happen in about 300 billion years, it's going to implode. So what takes place during an ascension cycle is that everything, including the planet, can move up in dimension from dimensions 1, 2, and 3, which is where we are now. We can start to ascend up to dimensions 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, depending on who you are inside that physical body. You could be an ascended master. You could be an oversoul. I don't know. But depending on who you are and why you came here, you go back to the dimensional field that you match with in frequency. Most of humanity has been lowered down so much in their codes that they are barely able to make it into dimensions 4, 5, and 6. So this is why they want to suppress you and keep you locked into this. Because when this ascension cycle happens, this one will take place. The ones that have happened before, because they happen every 25,000 or 26,000 years, this is when you have those great floods, when you have the pole shifts, when you have certain things like that. This was all related to the ascension cycle being stopped by these extraterrestrials. They have been trying to stop ascension cycles for a very long time so that they can stay. They can't ascend. They cannot ascend. They are not connected to God. So this is why they don't want anything else to ascend. So they can continue to feed off you, feed off the planet, feed off the universe, the galaxies, until they have no other choice and they implode because they're finite. So what does this have to do with AI? What does this have to do with your digital twin? This is where I want you to understand. They're in an artificial system that no longer has the pulse, the breath of God, the life force energy that moves to and through them. This is why, for billions of years, they have been siphoning energy off of multiple dimensions, and they have been doing it here. This is why we're all locked into this low frequency, and this is why we haven't been able to ascend since the fall of Atlantis. Our minds, our DNA has been tampered with. That's why you have the junk DNA that's supposedly turned off, and we don't remember anything because in the junk DNA lies the cellular memories of all of our past. This is why some people will start to have that happen when their DNA activates. They'll start to know things without even having any proof. And because you've been so brainwashed, you may not even believe what you're being told because it doesn't conform to the way you're used to believing things in the third dimension. Our minds have been harnessed into a one way of looking at things, a belief system and propaganda that keeps you actually denying your divineness, your divinity. We're told that if you have intuition, if you're psychic in any way, you're connected to the devil. You better stop. This is where I want you to understand. A Metatronic reversed matrix means it's everything against God. So everything that we have been taught in our timeline is the opposite of how it was meant to be. So if they're telling you being psychic or being with the devil and you got to stop, no, part of your abilities as a multidimensional being is that you're psychic, is that you have these supernatural powers, is that you have extrasensory perceptions. But they've never given this to you in your educational system. They've never given this to you in any way. But if you were ever to tap into those secret societies, this is what they all know. And that you and I are always meant to know. So when this ascension cycle happens, part of Earth is going to ascend up into Terra, and whoever has the vibrational frequency to match that is going to ascend as well. And so this is where a lot of you have heard of these two timelines. The two timelines is one is the shadow artificial matrix and one is the true prime Earth where people go who match the frequency. It has nothing to do with whether you're a good person or whether you go to work and you pay your bills. If you're operating from fear, if your whole entire body is locked in fear and scarcity and worry, this will keep you here. So this is where the whole illusion of, oh, just be a good person, just go pay your bills and live life, don't argue, just conform. That is a joke because that kept you in a very low frequency and you believed that you were doing all the right things. This is what's so awful that they've done to humanity. So the truth is, if you think from fear, if you think from judgment, if you are in a place where you're totally suffering and you're constantly struggling, you are in a very low frequency. And this will not match Terra in dimensions 4, 5, and 6. This is why you need to understand. You can shift this. You're not stuck there, but it's a new awareness. It's a new understanding that you need to shift the way you think and your perception of reality, or you'll be stuck in the timeline that's artificial. So what I'm talking about when it comes to this is their metaverse. I know a lot of you have heard of their metaverse. Have you done any research on it? The metaverse is basically hijacking your consciousness into what's called a digital reality. And they're very much marketing like, oh, You can escape the hell of reality, which is what they've created here, this timeline, and you can put your minds into this metaverse. They're even getting you there by promising you that you can make money. They're trying to get you to put your mind into a false digital world where you can shop there, you can trade there, you can buy homes there, you could talk to your friends there, and they're even amping it up where you'll be able to use your senses. You'll smell there, you'll taste there, you'll be able to have all of that in this digital world. This is the advanced technology that they already have in place. If you think what you're being told now is what they have, they're 50 times way ahead of you. So this is where you need to understand their end goal. This is what the transhuman is all about. This is about the chips everywhere in your body to harness your consciousness and stick your mind into this digital reality where you can't tell the difference between whether you're in real reality or the digital. And once you're there, you never escape it. Now, why would they do this? Kimberly, why would they do this? Because consciousness will be controlled by your mind. If they can control you, which is your thoughts, your feelings, then they can keep you in a very low frequency, which is what they use to continue living. These higher frequencies that are coming through to the planet, they will activate within you higher aspects of yourself, which is more love, abundance, joy. You will raise above this frequency fence that they've got you under. So when you're in the digital reality, when you think it's actually your own reality, because you're going in it and you're thinking it's real. Look at now on Reels. You can go and look on Reels right now and you can't tell unless someone says, this ain't real, if that was a real video or not. You know, they're already doing this. This is like the boiling frog in the water, but they're doing it so slowly. You have to be aware of what they're doing. It is going to be so seamless that human beings who are so out cold, they're not aware of any of this, are going to seamlessly move into a digital reality. And if you understand your subconscious mind, you can tell it anything. It accepts everything. It doesn't deny anything. It believes everything you tell it. It cannot tell the difference between whether you're thinking something or experiencing something. And because most of humanity are not aware of this, sticking your consciousness into this metaverse, where they're creating this massive reality that resembles your own reality. What do you think they've been collecting? The data of you, your pictures on the internet, everything on Facebook. They're going to make that world look exactly or as close to it as the world that you live in now, so that it's such a seamless transition that you won't even question anything that's going on. So they want this all done by 2030 because during the ascension cycle, human beings, Earth, things will be able to move up into frequency and do the ascension. Ascension cycle is going to work this time. It has been stalled and prevented since the fall of Atlantis. That's why Atlantis fell, was because of what happened with the pole shifts. When the stargates were stopped, they were not allowed to open up and allow the ascension process to take place. So this is why Atlantis ended up under the ocean. So this is where you need to understand that they can't stop it this time. And I'll go into that in other videos as to why. So this is why this is happening now. Why wouldn't this have happened 25,000 years ago or 500,000 years ago? Because this is the time where they cannot stop the ascension cycle from happening. This reset is going to happen. This is why they used to call their little agenda the Great Reset, because they plan on, because it is a reset, to take the ones that don't match the frequency through this ascension into their artificial timeline. And you will be a part of that in the digital metaverse and not even know it. And you will be there as a transhuman. Your body will never be used. You will be in there with your mind, your central nervous system. That's it. So basically, it's their last hurrah. It's their last attempt to gain as much energy as they can to bring into their black hole, because they are going to fall. This is what you could call hell. This is in the Bible. What they wrote is called hell. So you transition into there and you're locked into a false timeline and now a digital reality that isn't even real and you think it is. So all the promises that they're telling you in those sustainable goals are lies. We're going to make that all the water is clean and that nobody's going to be in poverty and that you're going to be able to be healthy and happy. No, you're going to be able to play an avatar in a digital reality where you can have anything you want. You can change your hair color, you can change your gender, you can be a rock star, you can have all your arms and legs and be able to move again, because it's not you. It's not your physical organic divine self. It's a transhuman robot / cyborg that is only keeping you alive for two things: your brain and your central nervous system. I talked about this a couple months ago with an author named Ray Kurzweil. And he boldly shares in this book how by 2045, the transhuman, there will be no humans left. And the transhuman will not have anything within themselves. They're gutting you. They're going to take out your heart. They're going to take out your lungs. They're going to take out everything, because the nanotechnology that's going to be replacing everything within you is what keeps your brain and your central nervous system going. Now, anyone who's watching me can call me crazy. They can say that, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. Probably because it scares them, because this is so big that you can't even possibly imagine that this is something that's available, because they've kept you in the dark for so long. So this is only going to be for certain people. And for me to come on here and to share this and have people that call me those things, obviously, you know, that I have to listen to my higher self, and I have to trust that it doesn't matter. I'm going to share this for the right people, because this is what's going to happen. And you need to be aware of it in order to not fall into what they're trying to get all of humanity into, is this digital false reality. And you will never be able to leave it. And you will go down in the black hole system with them when the ascension cycle takes place. Now, I know that's a lot I just shared, but take a look back at what you know, at least since 2020. But this has been going on way before that. What is going up in our skies, what has been put into your bodies without your consent, what is in everything that we consume or need to consume to live as an organic being, has all been mutated. It's all been preparing for your body to be changed without your consent. Now, even if you think what I'm sharing, you can't even let your mind accept it, then you need to start to question who has the right to change God's creation without your consent, to the point where you are no longer human, and they're boldly telling you that this will be the last generation that will be pure human. And they're trying to market it like this is the evolution. This is forced evolution. This is not natural evolution. And so for those of you who resonate with this and understand this, or even start to question this, all you need to know is to keep your frequency high. Because when you keep your frequency high, you're outside the range of the frequencies they're using to lock you into this frequency fence. This is an electric fence. This is what the 5G towers are about. This is what the 15-minute cities are all about. It's to harness your mind and your consciousness through frequency bandwidth that keeps you altered into a very low state. Basically like walking around like zombies with never questioning a thing, because you don't know what's going on, because you're being altered through frequency. And most people don't even understand that. You're an energy being. You're an electromagnetic being. So you're going to be able to be controlled through electromagnetics. So when you choose to raise your consciousness and you choose to become more like your creator, which is love, unity, abundance, happiness, joy, then you will have no problem transitioning into these different timelines, because there is going to be that split, and they don't want you to know so that you effortlessly fall into the hole. So this is why I started sharing these again today, and I will share them more in detail about what I get and what I want people to try to grasp. But these are not meant to make you scared. If you're in fear, you need to check that within yourself, because an enlightened being is someone who can take information in, but process it and say, okay, what am I going to do about this? The answer is always the same. Become more like God, which means elevate your consciousness, become a better human being. Don't fall into the fears and the control systems, and live your life from in here out. When you do that, automatically your consciousness rises, because you come more like your true self. Who we have become here is so distorted. It's not at all how we used to be. When you know about certain things that have been leaked out, archaeology where people have found things hidden underneath things, this shows you that we lived in a very, very rich and abundant society at one point. How do you go from being extremely rich and abundant to absolute lack and poverty and struggle? That's a reset. And that's done when the ascension cycle takes place and it's interrupted and a whole entire planet is shifted. a whole entire race. Continents are put underground. Continents are split in half. Things go under the ocean. You have to understand this is why our geography has changed. It's going to be harder and more difficult to know the truth anymore. So you're going to have to trust your instincts, trust your intuition, and lead from the inside out if you want to be able to keep yourself from falling for their manipulations.